Imagine the feeling. Pure, ice-cold rage mixed with utter disbelief, standing on your own porch while police lights paint everything blue and red. And the reason they're there? Because the woman whose son just ransacked your home, stole your belongings, violated your sanctuary, she called them
On you.
The audacity was stunning, almost paralyzing. But clutched in my trembling hand was the tiny piece of plastic that held her downfall, the proof she was frantically, foolishly trying to bury under false accusations. How did my nightmare neighbor twist my trauma into a weapon, only to aim it squarely at herself? Stick around, because you won't believe how spectacularly this Karen's entitled scheme backfired, leading straight to her own arrest. Before Karen descended like a meticulously highlighted plague, life was calm. Beautifully, blessedly calm. My name is Sarah, and I work from home as a freelance graphic designer. My little bungalow wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Every square inch felt like an extension of me. As a woman living alone, that sense of security, of having a place that was truly safe, was everything. I'd spent weekends painting walls calming shades of green and blue, planting flowers that exploded with color each summer, and filling shelves not just with books, but with little treasures collected over years, including a small, intricate music box my grandmother had given me, tucked away safely, or so I thought. My home wasn't just shelter. It was my carefully curated peace, my workspace, my haven from the noise of the world. My routine was simple, predictable. Morning coffee on the porch swing, the chirping of birds my soundtrack. Long hours lost in design projects, fueled by creativity and too much caffeine, sunlight streaming through the window that overlooked my small, tidy backyard. Evening walks where nods and smiles were exchanged with familiar faces. I'm not someone who seeks out conflict. Honestly, I usually detour around drama like it's a pothole. Keep it pleasant, keep it polite, that was my neighborly motto. The house next door had been quiet for months after old Mr. Henderson moved on. I missed his gardening tips, but the silence wasn't unwelcome. Then the sold sign appeared, and shortly after, the moving trucks and her. Karen arrived not with a friendly wave, but with an aura of irritation already firmly in place. She stepped out of an SUV that seemed far too large for the driveway, barking orders into her phone. The haircut was unmistakable, sharply angled, aggressively blonde, looking like it could cut glass. Sunglasses that cost more than my monthly grocery bill were perched on her head, deflecting the world. Her outfit screamed expensive athleisure, worn not for sport, but as armor. Her default expression, even from across the street, seemed to be a mixture of judgment and impatience, lips permanently pursed. Trailing behind her, radiating teenage apathy, was Dylan. Maybe 16, maybe 17, slouching under the weight of terminal boredom, earbuds permanently affixed. He seemed less like her son, and more like an accessory she occasionally remembered to scold. My initial thought was charitable, moving is stressful. I'd give them space. But Karen wasn't one for waiting to impose herself. 2 days later, I was tending to my hydrangeas, enjoying a rare moment of quiet satisfaction. Karen pulled in, still talking loudly on her phone. She got out, cast a critical eye over my yard, my carefully tended haven, and announced to her caller, clearly intending for me to hear, about the little yellow house next door. She said it tries too hard, looks a bit, well, quaint. It definitely needed updating, in her opinion. Heat flooded my cheeks. Quaint? My pale yellow house? I loved that color. Before I could process the drive-by insult, she snapped her phone shut and marched across her lawn, then mine, straight into my personal space by the flower bed. Her perfectly manicured finger, nail-painted a severe shade of oxblood, seemed to itch for pointing. She stated, not asked, that I must be Sarah. Her eyes, briefly visible when she adjusted her sunglasses, were cold. She introduced herself as Karen. I managed, forcing politeness, to say hi and welcome her to the neighborhood. She waved away the pleasantry like a bothersome fly. These flowers, she gestured vaguely at my prize-winning hydrangeas. They were rather large, weren't they? They cast a shadow on her breakfast nook, she claimed, though there was no nook on that side of her house. And that hedge, she pointed to the neatly trimmed dividing line. It was encroaching. I needed to cut it back. Significantly. I opened my mouth, ready to defend my perfectly reasonable hedge, but she barreled on. Her Dylan, she said, nodding towards her son, who was now moodily kicking at their porch railing, needed room. He cuts across lawns. Obviously, she finished, that wouldn't be a problem for me. It was delivered as an order. I started to explain, trying to sound reasonable, that I'd really prefer if he didn't cut through the flower beds. Karen's eyes narrowed. Don't make things difficult, Sarah, she interrupted. It's just grass and dirt. He's a boy. He needs to roam. She flashed a tight, insincere smile. Anyway, she had to dash. So much to do. She turned on her heel and marched back across my lawn, leaving me standing there, hose dangling, feeling like I'd just been assessed, judged, and dismissed in under 60 seconds. The unease wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a certainty. My quiet little corner of the world had just acquired a very noisy, very sharp-edged problem. The initial rudeness was just the appetizer. The main course was a steady diet of boundary pushing and passive aggression, served daily. Dylan's lawn cutting became a defiant ritual. I'd see him deliberately veer off the sidewalk, trampling through my mulch, sometimes kicking decorative stones aside, all while wearing an expression of pure, smug indifference. My polite requests to Karen were met with sighs and eye rolls. Sarah, you are so sensitive about your garden, she'd complain, flicking an imaginary speck of dust off her pristine white jacket. It's practically a public pathway. Dylan isn't hurting anything, she insisted. Then came the parking wars. The street parking in front of my house apparently became Karen's exclusive domain. Her behemoth SUV was constantly parked right on the edge of my driveway, forcing me into nerve-wracking, three-point turns. One afternoon, it was parked squarely blocking half of it. I had melting ice cream in the trunk. I parked 3 houses down and hauled my groceries, fuming. I rang her bell, bracing myself. Karen answered, looking put upon. She just said, yes? Karen, I began, trying to channel calm I didn't feel. Your car is blocking my driveway. She feigned surprise. Oh, is it? Sorry. Had people over. Nowhere else to put it, she claimed. There's plenty of space down the street, I countered, gesturing. An exaggerated sigh. Fine, she conceded reluctantly, if you insist on being difficult about shared space. The door clicked shut. The SUV was moved minutes later, but only by inches, a petty power play. The noise pollution began subtly. Odd thumps from their garage late at night. Heated arguments between Karen and Dylan that drifted over the fence, filled with accusations and slammed doors. Then came the bass, deep, rattling thuds that vibrated through my floors at random hours, often well past midnight. When I finally broached the subject, suggesting maybe toning it down after 11, Karen went nuclear. Was I spying on them now? She demanded, her voice sharp. Was I saying her son was some kind of delinquent? He's a good boy. Maybe I needed earplugs. This is a neighborhood, not a monastery, she declared. The next day, I overheard her loudly telling Mrs. Gable across the street that I was nosy and probably lonely, inventing complaints for attention. My cheeks burned with humiliation and anger. I felt increasingly isolated, like I was the problem neighbor. Then the notes started. Anonymous. Typed notes left under my wiper or taped to my door. Your lawn is half an inch longer than regulation height. Please rectify. The smell of your barbecue is drifting. Consider your neighbors. Always unsigned, always on expensive, cream-colored paper, always dripping with condescension. Dylan's behavior shifted from merely annoying to genuinely unsettling. I started catching him just watching my house. standing near the property line, partially hidden by the contentious hedge, just staring. Or sitting on his porch steps, eyes tracking my movements when I went to get the mail. It felt less like teenage loitering and more like reconnaissance. One morning, I found a long, deliberate scratch down the side of my car, parked on the street, right where Karen often complained about. Coincidence? Maybe. But the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. My home, my sanctuary, started feeling less like a haven and more like a fishbowl surrounded by sharks. The constant low-level stress was gnawing at me. I wasn't sleeping well. I felt jumpy, anxious. My work suffered. I found myself compulsively checking locks, peering through blinds. This wasn't living, it was enduring. It was this relentless campaign of petty harassment, combined with Dylan's increasingly creepy surveillance, that finally made me install security cameras. I rationalized it as a general safety upgrade, something prudent homeowners do. But I knew deep down it was because of them. I got a decent system. One for the front porch and driveway, one covering the back door and yard. I put the little warning stickers in the windows, hoping visibility might deter something. Karen noticed immediately, of course. Getting paranoid in your old age, Sarah? She called across the lawn one morning, a smirk playing on her lips. Putting up spy cams now? Just security, Karen, I replied tightly, grabbing my mail and retreating. Oomph, she sniffed loudly. Well, don't point them at her house. She wouldn't want me invading her privacy, she added pointedly. The irony was thick enough to spread on toast. The dread that had been a low hum intensified into a constant thrumming beneath my skin. Something had to give. I just didn't realize how spectacularly it would break. The breaking point arrived disguised as a pleasant Wednesday evening. I'd escaped for dinner with friends, laughing more than I had in months, momentarily forgetting the suffocating tension Karen radiated. Driving home around 10:30, feeling relaxed, I turned onto my street, and my stomach plummeted. Something was wrong. Karen's SUV wasn't in its usual spot, which was odd for a weeknight. Then my eyes fixed on my front door. It wasn't shut tight. It was slightly ajar, a dark, menacing sliver against the cheerful yellow paint. Ice flooded my veins. My breath hitched. I killed the engine and coasted to a stop down the block, heart hammering like a drum against my ribs. Was someone still inside? My fingers trembled so badly I could barely dial 911. Explaining the situation to the dispatcher felt like an out-of-body experience, my voice shaky and thin. Stay in the car, they said. Officers are en route. Waiting felt like stretching time on a rack. Headlights cut the darkness as 2 patrol cars arrived silently, efficiently. Watching the officers approach my violated home, guns ready, felt like watching a scene from a movie, except the set was my life, my safe space. It was sickening. After an agonizing 10 minutes, an officer returned. The house was clear, he said gently. But he was sorry. It appeared I had been burglarized. Stepping inside behind the police was gut-wrenching. My living room, my sanctuary, was destroyed. Cushions slashed, drawers emptied, books torn from shelves and scattered like fallen soldiers. They hadn't just searched, they'd ravaged. My office was worse. Laptop gone. Backup drive gone. Tablet gone. Years of work, client files vanished. In the bedroom, the scene repeated. My jewelry box, tossed aside, empty. The little music box from my grandmother, gone. That specific loss felt like a physical blow. They hadn't just stolen things, they'd stolen memories, security, peace. Tears I hadn't realized I was holding back finally streamed down my face as I surveyed the chaos. The police were thorough, taking statements, dusting for prints that likely wouldn't lead anywhere. They asked the routine questions. Any enemies? Anyone unusual hanging around? My mind screamed Karen and Dylan, but I hesitated. I mentioned the neighbor trouble, Dylan's strange behavior, the feeling of being watched. The officers noted it, but without proof, it was just background noise. Their expressions suggested they'd heard similar stories before, rarely leading anywhere concrete. I couldn't stay there that night. The house felt contaminated, haunted by the intrusion. I grabbed a few necessities, the violation clinging to me like a shroud, and fled to a friend's couch, feeling utterly hollowed out. The next morning, operating on caffeine and sheer will, I returned. The mess was still overwhelming, a physical manifestation of my violated peace. But my priority was the security system. Had it caught anything? Anything useful? My hands shook as I logged into the cloud storage. The front camera showed me leaving. Then, about an hour later, a figure. Dark clothes, hoodie up, face obscured. They approached the door, fiddled with the lock for maybe 30 seconds, disturbingly fast, and slipped inside. Nothing more from that angle. My hope plummeted. Then I remembered the back camera. "Please," I whispered, "please show me something." I switched the feed. There. 45 minutes after entering, the figure emerged from my back door. Carrying my laptop bag. Carrying another duffel bag, likely stuffed with my stolen possessions. They moved quickly towards the property line, towards Karen's house. And then the glance back. A quick, furtive look towards my house. The hood slipped, just for a heartbeat, but the motion-activated porch light caught the profile perfectly. The sullen mouth, the resentful eyes, the specific slope of the nose. It was Dylan. Undeniably Dylan. Bile rose in my throat. It wasn't random. It wasn't just suspicion. It was him. And the ease of entry. Had Karen helped? Left a door unlocked? Given him a key? The possibilities were sickening. But then I saw it. The detail that turned cold dread into icy certainty. Dylan paused near the back fence, right below the camera. He looked up directly at the lens. Then, deliberately, he raised a long stick, probably a branch from the hedge, and pushed the camera upwards, tilting its view uselessly towards the night sky. He knew. He knew it was there. He knew where it was pointed. He tried to cover his tracks, but only after his face had been clearly captured. The calculated malice of it struck me dumb. He hadn't just robbed me, he'd planned it. Watched me. Knew my routines, my security. Those lingering stares weren't teenage boredom. They were target assessment. I saved the footage immediately, downloaded, backed up, emailed to myself. My hands were still shaking, but now it was with a potent cocktail of fury and adrenaline. I had him. Cold, hard proof. My first instinct was to call Detective Miller immediately. But then, Karen. Her inevitable denial, her lies, her histrionics. What if I waited? Just a little while. Let them think they were clear. Let her arrogance be her downfall. The thought was cold, calculating, born of violation and anger. Yes. I would wait. I needed to think. This wasn't just about getting my things back. It was about ensuring they both faced the consequences of their actions. Cleaning up the physical wreckage that day felt like moving through fog. Every noise made me jump. Every shadow seemed menacing. I filed the insurance claim, the list of stolen items growing longer and more depressing. But overshadowing the loss was the crystal-clear image of Dylan's face and the chilling evidence of his calculated intrusion. I decided to call the detective first thing Friday morning. Give myself a night to process, to steel myself. Confronting Karen directly felt like walking into an ambush. Patience seemed the wiser, albeit more difficult, path. Around 7 p.m. Thursday, darkness gathering outside, a furious pounding erupted on my front door. Not a knock, a barrage. My heart leaped into my throat. Peeking through the peephole confirmed my fear, Karen. And she looked like she was about to spontaneously combust. Should I open it? What now? Before I could formulate a plan, her voice, shrill and piercing, cut through the wood. Sarah, I see your lights. Open this door immediately, she demanded. More pounding, vibrating the door in its frame. This wasn't concern, it was an assault. Taking a deep, Shaky breath. I slid the chain lock into place and opened the door just that crucial few inches. Karen stood there, practically vibrating with rage. Her face was blotchy, her expensive blonde hair slightly wild. The usual icy composure had melted, revealing raw, unchecked fury beneath. Hands planted on her hips, she looked ready for battle. "What is it, Karen?" I asked, my voice tight, betraying my pounding heart.
"Don't you what is it me?"
she shrieked, stabbing a perfectly manicured finger towards the gap. "I know what you've been saying. Trying to blame my Dylan for your little break-in." I blinked. How? Had Dylan cracked? Or more likely, concocted some self-serving lie? What are you talking about? I kept my voice level, a stark contrast to her near hysteria. "Don't play dumb." She spat, her eyes flashing.
"Dylan told me."
"He said you were giving him dirty looks, asking suspicious questions, trying to make him the scapegoat because you're incompetent." He'd seen me giving him looks? He was already building his defense. And Karen, his ever-loyal, reality-averse defender, was buying every word. "Karen, my house was robbed," I stated, the words flat and heavy. "The police are investigating." "Investigating?" She laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "I bet you fed them some story about my poor boy. He's a good kid. Sensitive. You probably left your door wide open, invited trouble, and now you need someone to blame." The sheer, breathtaking injustice of it ignited the slow-burning rage I'd been trying to suppress. Standing there, accusing me, defending the son who had violated my home, stolen my grandmother's music box, it was too much. "You need to leave," I said, my voice dropping, dangerously quiet.
"Now."
"I'm not going anywhere," she yelled, actually pushing against the door, rattling the chain. "You need to stop harassing my innocent son. You need to call the police back and tell them you were mistaken." "I haven't harassed anyone," I countered, my own volume rising despite myself. "And I wasn't mistaken." "Liar," she screamed, her face contorting. "You're pathetic. Probably jealous of us. You likely faked the whole thing for the insurance payout." That vile accusation snapped the last thread of my control. But before I could respond, Karen did the unthinkable. She whipped out her phone, thumb already swiping. "That does it. I'm calling the police," she declared, her voice ringing with misplaced righteousness. "I'm reporting you. For harassment. For making false accusations. Let's see the police deal with you." I watched, utterly dumbfounded, as she actually dialed 911. Standing on my porch, after her son committed a felony against me, she was summoning the authorities on me. The weaponized entitlement was staggering. "Yes, operator?" She chirped into the phone, her voice instantly transforming into that of a trembling victim. "I need help. My neighbor, Sarah, at 12 Oak Street, she's becoming unhinged, harassing my teenage son, making wild threats. I feel unsafe. Send officers right away." She ended the call with a flourish, a smug, victorious smirk spreading across her face. "There," she announced, crossing her arms. "Now we'll see who's telling the truth." A sudden, chilling calm descended over me. The swirling anger solidified into sharp focus. She thought she had me cornered. In reality, she just blindly walked into the spotlight, dragging her son with her. The memory card, safe in my pocket, felt like a loaded gun. "Okay, Karen," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. "Let's wait." The ensuing 10 minutes stretched into an eternity of tense silence, broken only by Karen's furious pacing on my walkway and her muttered curses about crazy people and liars. Curtains twitched across the street. Mrs. Gable stood on her porch, wringing her hands. The neighborhood held its breath. Then, the familiar strobing blue and red lights washed over the houses. The same two officers from the burglary call, Miller and Russo, pulled up, looking even more tired than before. They approached, their expressions wary, taking in Karen's agitated state and my position behind the chained door. "All right, what's the situation now?" Officer Miller asked, his voice devoid of patience. Karen launched herself forward. "Officer, thank God. This woman," she jabbed a finger violently towards me, "is out of control. She's been harassing my son, accusing him of that robbery. She's clearly unstable. I told you, she probably staged it." Officer Miller turned his tired gaze to me. "Ma'am?" I took a measured breath. "Officers, as you know, my home was burglarized Wednesday night. I spent today reviewing my security footage." I paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Karen stopped ranting mid-sentence, her eyes darting nervously. "The footage is very clear." "And what does it show?" Officer Miller prompted. Karen jumped back in, insisting I was lying, that I manipulated it. "Dylan was studying. He was with her all evening." "Karen," Officer Russo interjected firmly, "let her speak." My gaze locked with Karen's for a split second before returning to the officers. "The person who broke into my house, stole my property," I said, my voice ringing with cold clarity, "was your son, Dylan." Karen completely lost it, screaming that it was a filthy lie. How dare I accuse her baby? She surged towards my door again, but Officer Russo moved swiftly to block her path. "Ma'am, control yourself," he commanded. "I have the footage," I stated calmly, pulling the small memory card from my pocket and holding it up. "On this card, it shows him entering through the front, leaving through the back with my belongings, and even looking directly at the rear camera before attempting to push it away. His face is perfectly clear." Officer Miller's demeanor shifted instantly from weary resignation to sharp attention. "You have video?" he asked. "Yes," I confirmed.
Clear as day.
Time-stamped. The color drained from Karen's face, leaving it a pasty, terrified white. No, it can't be. He was home. I checked on him." Her voice trembled, betraying her panic. "Ma'am." Officer Miller addressed Karen, his voice now dangerously low and official. "You called 911 claiming harassment. Your neighbor is now presenting digital evidence implicating your son in a felony burglary that occurred on her property." And his eyes narrowed. "You just stated, unprompted, that he was home with you, providing him with an alibi. Were you aware of your son's actions Wednesday night?"
No.
"Never. He's a good boy. He wouldn't." Karen insisted, but her eyes flickered with guilt. "We need to see that footage, Sarah," Officer Miller said. I nodded grimly, finally sliding the chain free and opening the door wider. I carefully avoided Karen's gaze as the officers stepped inside. Using my spare laptop, I played the footage. The image of Dylan, caught red-handed, his face clear as he glanced back before disabling the camera, it was damning. The officers exchanged a significant look. "Okay," Officer Miller said quietly. He turned back to the door. "Karen, we need to speak with Dylan." "He didn't do it." Karen shrieked, physically trying to block Officer Russo as he escorted her off my porch towards her own house. "You can't question him. He's just a boy." "Ma'am, we have probable cause," Officer Russo stated flatly. "Interfering will result in obstruction charges." Defeated, Karen shuffled towards her house with the officers. Minutes later, Dylan emerged, sandwiched between them, looking pale and utterly terrified. He didn't struggle, but his eyes darted wildly, seeking escape. Then the officers were back on Karen's porch, speaking to her in low, serious tones. I couldn't hear every word, but phrases like false police report, material witness, hindering prosecution, and accessory after the fact drifted across the lawn. Karen dissolved. Tears, shouting, pleading, threats, a rapid-fire explosion of desperate denial. "This is ridiculous. I'm a taxpayer. My husband will sue you all. You're ruining our lives," she yelled. It was futile. Officer Miller calmly informed her she was being detained for filing a false report and obstruction. As Officer Russo placed a handcuffed Dylan in one patrol car, Officer Miller read Karen her Miranda rights. The moment he gently took her arm to guide her towards the second car, she erupted. "You'll pay for this, Sarah. You hear me? You will pay." Her shriek echoed down the suddenly silent street as the car door closed, sealing her fate. Watching the two police cars drive away, carrying both mother and son, wasn't triumphant. It was profoundly disturbing. But beneath the shock and the lingering adrenaline, a wave of immense, bone-deep relief washed over me. The constant tension, the fear, the harassment, it was over. Karen, in her blind, raging entitlement, had single-handedly delivered the justice I wasn't sure I'd ever get. The silence left behind by the fading sirens felt heavy, thick with unspoken neighborhood relief. Curtains parted fully now. Mrs. Gable hurried over, her face a mixture of shock and concern. "Sarah, my dear girl, are you all right?" she asked, placing a comforting hand on my arm. "I saw everything. Karen and the boy arrested?" Briefly, emotionally drained, I recounted the nightmare. The robbery, Dylan on camera, Karen's unbelievable gamble calling the police on me. Mrs. Gable listened, aghast. "That woman," she breathed, shaking her head. "Always thought she was horrid, but this, robbing you, then turning it around? Thank heavens for those cameras, Sarah. Thank heavens." Other neighbors offered quiet words of support, their relief almost palpable. The oppressive atmosphere Karen had cultivated seemed to lift from the street like a physical weight. The legal proceedings unfolded predictably. Faced with irrefutable video, Dylan confessed. He admitted planning the burglary, casing my house, even described how his mother coached him on a cover story after he told her what he'd done. Her desperate 911 call was a panicked attempt to discredit me before I could present evidence. Karen's lawyer tried painting her as a protective mother bear, but the false report charge, coupled with her documented history of antagonism, bolstered by statements from myself and other weary neighbors, sealed her fate. Dylan got probation, hefty community service, and mandatory restitution, though my grandmother's music box was never recovered, a permanent ache. Karen received probation, a significant fine, court-ordered anger management, and a blistering lecture from the judge about wasting police resources and victim intimidation. Shortly after sentencing, a for sale sign appeared on their lawn. They moved out quickly, vanishing from our lives as abruptly as they'd arrived. The collective exhale on Oak Street was almost audible. Rebuilding my sense of security wasn't instant. I installed better locks, more cameras. For months, unexpected noises made my heart leap. The violation left invisible scars. But slowly, the feeling of my home as a sanctuary returned. The peace I had cherished seeped back into the walls, into the quiet mornings, into the blooming hydrangeas. Looking back, it's a chilling reminder of how easily peace can be shattered by unchecked entitlement. Karen's absolute conviction in her own righteousness, her belief that she could bully and lie her way out of anything, was precisely what led to her downfall. She didn't just get caught, she sprinted headlong into the consequences, dragging her son with her. There's a stark, unsettling satisfaction in that. It taught me that while peace is precious, sometimes the only way to reclaim it is to stand firm, let the evidence speak, and watch an entitled Karen become the architect of her own spectacular ruin. My street is quiet again, and that quiet feels earned.